Welcome to a place where shadows linger and secrets never rest. Tonight, you're invited on a chilling journey through the forgotten corridors of Black Hollow Hospital, a story woven from whispers, memories, and the courage to face what hides in the dark. If you've ever felt a shiver in an empty hallway or wondered about the stories behind abandoned rooms, this adventure is crafted just for you. Here, every step uncovers hidden truths. Every sound may be more than it seems. You'll meet heroes haunted by guilt, survivors chasing hope, and ghosts longing to be remembered. Stay with us as we dive deep into a world where fear and compassion walk side by side, and only the bravest unlock the ending. Don't just listen, experience every heartbeat, every mystery, every moment. Trust me, once you start, you won't want to turn back. Are you ready? Let the story begin. The wind howled across the empty lot, a mournful cry that seemed to echo the fate of Black Hollow Hospital. 5 strangers stood beneath the flickering street lamp, each clutching a flashlight and a secret. The youngest, a tech specialist, checked his equipment nervously, while the oldest, a retired nurse, muttered prayers under her breath. Their leader, Thomas, looked at the crumbling facade and tried to ignore the images from his own nightmares. "Damn place gives me the creeps," whispered Simon, the skeptic. "Why are we here again?" "Because no one else would dare," replied June, each word sharp but heavy with regret. "People go missing here. Answers stay hidden. We need closure." Before them, the iron gate stood half open, as if inviting their arrival. A posted sign warned, "Do not enter, condemned." But curiosity is a force more powerful than fear. Thomas raised his microphone, capturing the nervous banter and uneven footsteps as they approached the hospital entrance. A stray cat darted past, vanishing into the tall grass. The retired nurse paused, eyes wide, remembering stories from her working days. Lost patients, midnight screams, nurses who vanished on duty. Simon gestured forward, grumbling, "Let's get this over with." The group stepped onto broken tiles, their beams searching the corridors as dust motes danced in the moonlight. Inside, the air pressed down, thick with the scent of rust, disinfectant, and faded memories. Every door seemed to watch them. Every shadow threatened to move. Suddenly, the old intercom crackled to life. A recording played, warped and slow. "Welcome to Black Hollow." The message trailed off into static. Their tech expert tried to explain, but no one believed it was a coincidence. The retired nurse approached the admissions desk, fingertips brushing across faded files. "The missing? Their names never left the register," she whispered, voice trembling. Thomas captured everything, knowing listeners would want every detail. June found a child's toy buried in the dust, its eyes missing, its music box broken. Footsteps echoed deeper inside, extra footsteps the group hadn't made. Simon tried a light joke, hoping to calm the mood, but the laughter died quickly. Banners still hung from old community events, covered in grime. The group exchanged nervous glances as the wind rattled shattered windows. An alarm sounded from deep within, a relic from another era. "That's not possible," said June, nerves fraying as the sound faded into a chilling silence. They pressed forward, hearts pounding, bound by mission and fear. Their every move was monitored by unseen eyes. Their every breath seemed louder in the suffocating darkness. The building itself felt alive, and as Thomas whispered parting words to the outside world, the heavy entrance door slammed shut behind them, locking out the world, locking in their fate. As they gather themselves, one of the 30 doors down the hall creaks open, revealing only darkness and an old sign that reads, "Admissions." A cold draft swept through the hall, chilling the group as they entered the admissions area. Polished tiles, now cracked and dust-laden, stretched far ahead. Rusted wheelchairs greeted them in silence, reminders of past chaos and hurried escapes. The walls still bore faded plaques, "Welcome Patients," their letters peeling and smeared with ancient stains. June ran her fingers along the registration desk, feeling a sticky residue. "This is where it all started," she whispered, recalling the legend of the first missing doctor. Simon fidgeted, shining his torch into shadowy corners, finding old keys, a dried rose, and a patient bracelet dated decades ago. Suddenly, a distant echo, the sound of a pen dropping, rang across the silent space. Their tech specialist stopped, recording the ambient noises. "Do you hear that scratching?" he asked. The sound grew louder, almost as if someone was frantically signing in. The retired nurse mouthed a silent prayer, glancing at files still open to unresolved admissions. Thomas found a tattered notebook, phrases scrawled in desperate handwriting. "Don't let me disappear." The group listened as Simon read the lines, each word trembling in the cold air. Just then, lights flickered weakly overhead, casting long, shivering shadows. The banners fluttered, and for a moment it seemed as if someone stood at the end of the hall, face turned away, waiting for their name to be called. A door creaked open behind them. The group turned, flashlights catching on a broken Room 7 sign. The same room whispered about in rumors. Simon hesitated, but June stepped forward, her footsteps echoing with resolve. The air thickened. The group gathered close, nerves stretched, knowing with each step deeper mysteries awaited inside. Behind them, the old intercom sputtered to life again, repeating only, "Admissions, admissions." As June pushes open the door to Room 7, the group feels a sudden drop in temperature, and the unmistakable sound of a child's laughter rings out from the darkness within. As June pushed open the creaking door to Room 7, a wave of icy air rolled outward, brushing the group with chills that lingered beneath their skin. The beam of her flashlight illuminated peeling wallpaper, an empty hospital bed, and scattered toys, a tarnished rattle, and an old doll missing both eyes. Echoes of children's laughter bounced sharply off cold tile. The group halted, nerves prickling. Simon checked the corners, but the laughter kept shifting, as if coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. The tech specialist's device spiked with static. A low, ghostly hum began to fill their headphones. A file folder lay forgotten on the bed. Inside, pages documented a child named Leela, admitted for night terrors and hallucinations. June read aloud. She saw faceless people. She said they lived behind the walls. Suddenly, tiny handprints appeared on the frosted window, as though pressed from the other side. The retired nurse suppressed a scream, her memories suddenly alive with old cases never resolved. Thomas held his mic close, recording the heavy silence, interrupted only by distant giggles and the soft scrape of toys on the floor. Without warning, the doll in the room tipped over by itself, slow and deliberate, as if pushed by an unseen force. The flashlight flickered. In its brief blackout, whispers overlapped, childish voices singing a haunting lullaby. "Don't go, don't tell." Simon moved to the bed, only for a chilling draft to tug the blanket away, exposing more cryptic marks, tally scars and scrawled warnings. "They're still here," he murmured, voice shaky. The laughter faded, replaced by a single sob. In the dim corner, they glimpsed the outline of a child sitting cross-legged, head bowed. When June moved closer, the shadow vanished, but a tiny shoe remained on the floor, much newer than everything else. The tech specialist checked his gear. His phone now displayed photos he never took, pictures of children playing, but with blurred, hollow faces. Just before leaving, the group heard a gentle knock from inside the wall. Someone whispered, "If you listen, they'll come for you too." As they gather their courage to exit room 7, a faint message echoes from the intercom once more. "Go to the basement. The answers are below." The cold message from the intercom lingered in the air. "Go to the basement. The answers are below." The group exchanged uncertain glances, their breath misting as fear sank deep into their bones. Thomas led the way, flashlight trembling in his grip. The staircase to the basement loomed ahead, steep and narrow, each step crooked and caked with years of neglect. With every creak of the stairs, the air grew heavier. The walls breathed dampness and secrets. They moved slowly, nerves stretched taut, haunted by the laughter and laments from room 7. June squeezed the tiny shoe she'd found, unwilling to let go of the last evidence that children ever played here. Halfway down, the tech specialist's recorder picked up strange noises, soft wailing, shuffling feet dragging on hard concrete, and the faint trickle of water from unseen pipes. The retired nurse paused, heart pounding, remembering rumors of secret treatments hidden in the lower levels. As the group reached the basement landing, their flashlights flickered over peeling paint and half-erased warnings. A lone wheelchair rested overturned by a rusty elevator. The walls were scrawled with messages, "Help us," "Don't forget me," and a newer, chilling one, "Only the lost descend." Simon noticed a sprawling map of interconnected rooms, one marked with a faded X. The group debated, follow the map or trust their instincts. Suddenly, a metallic clang echoed sharply. Somewhere in the shadows, something moved. June gasped. An invisible hand seemed to push her forward. In the eerie quiet, the group heard a thin voice whisper up through a vent, "We remember what you did." Thomas captured every sound, determined to uncover the truth, even as terror gnawed at his resolve. The temperature plummeted, the basement felt less like a room and more like a tomb. As they pressed deeper, water dripped in rhythmic patterns, each drop a countdown to a new horror waiting in the darkness. At the end of the corridor, they found a locked door. Behind it, faint sobs and desperate scratching. June reached out, shivering, ready to unlock the next nightmare. As Thomas prepared to open the basement door, the group suddenly hears a woman's voice, ragged and pleading, echoing through the pipes. "If you hear me, please don't leave me alone down here." With trembling hands, Thomas pushed at the basement door. Rust groaned, and the hinges shrieked as the group stepped inside. The room was colder, thick with shadows and the memory of isolation. Pale moonlight peered through a broken window, illuminating a hospital bed chained to the wall. June shivered as the pleading woman's voice grew louder, echoing from somewhere unseen. "Don't leave me, please don't leave me down here." Simon searched the corners, but found only discarded medical charts, all labeled "missing patient." The tech specialist clicked record, his device capturing heartbreak, a distant sob, then a gasp. Suddenly, on the far wall, a faded mural appeared. Images of patients, some smiling, others looking away, their eyes dark voids. The retired nurse's voice trembled. "She's been calling for years. The staff used to hear her late at night." An old tape recorder buzzed to life, replaying a confession. She was restrained for her own safety, but we were never sure what she saw. June followed the cries to a closet door, each step met by desperate scratching from within. Dust floated in the air as she opened it. Inside, a hospital gown hung on a hook, fresh blood staining the sleeve. A photograph lay beneath, the woman, eyes wide, staring as if through time. Thomas read the back aloud. "You promised to come back." As the team gathered, a sudden chill swept through the room. Objects rattled. The gowns swayed as if tugged by invisible hands. The crying intensified, turning to shrieks, then a low, guttural warning. Go before you're forgotten too. The tech specialist's equipment picked up new signals, faint voices overlapping, staff arguing, patients pleading, the woman's voice always at the center. Out of nowhere, the overhead light exploded, plunging them into darkness. Simon's flashlight revealed jagged writing carved into the bed frame, "Mercy for the lost." June squeezed the photograph, searching for answers. The group huddled closer, caught between fear and guilt, sensing they had disturbed something long dormant. Just as they prepared to leave, a chilling new sound filled the room, a slow, dragging shuffle, coming closer, echoing through the pipes and walls. The intercom hissed, and a final message stuttered through the static. "You're not alone down here, never alone." As they exit the room, the dragging sounds begin to follow them, leading the group toward the elevator at the far end of the basement, its doors mysteriously ajar, beckoning them onward into the unknown. The dragging sounds slithered after the group, relentless and slow, echoing off damp stone as they hurried along the narrow basement corridor. Thomas swung his flashlight toward the old elevator. The doors, surprisingly, stood ajar, offering a glimpse of darkness within. Flickering overhead, a lone bulb shed weak light on rusted call buttons smeared with old fingerprints. June hesitated. "It shouldn't be open," she whispered. The nurse nodded, recalling stories of the elevator moving late at night when no one was supposed to be there. Simon pressed forward, peering inside, his torch beam finding only the ghosts of stains and a shattered emergency phone. Inside the elevator, the group gathered. The moment they entered, the doors slid shut with a metallic clang, locking out the familiar world behind them. Instantly, the air grew icy. A pressure built, as if the walls themselves wanted to squeeze the breath from their lungs. The call panel flickered. Every button glowed blood red, including ones for floors that didn't exist. The tech specialist's device emitted static, then snippets of conversation. "You said you'd never leave." Screaming again on level -2. "Lights out. Lock the doors." Suddenly, the elevator shuddered and dropped, a bone-jarring descent. Objects rattled in their packs, the emergency light casting distorted shadows on their faces. The bell above dinged, but the doors stayed closed. Thomas recorded the mounting panic, the whispered prayers, and June's determined plea. "Focus. We are not alone, and we are not leaving until we know the truth." A distorted melody played over the intercom, an old lullaby, slowed and warped. The floor indicator blinked, sub-level B. The doors finally creaked open, revealing a hall shrouded in fog and lined with ancient wheelchairs. For a moment, everyone froze, sensing the elevator was more than just a machine. It was a passage, a boundary between memory and madness. The dragging sound continued outside, now joined by faint voices chanting, "Don't look back, don't go up, the answers are below." As the group stepped out into the shadowy hall, their voices trembled, but resolve held. They would follow the fog, deeper into Black Hollow, toward whatever waited in the depths. As they turn the corner, a sudden gust blows open a door, and the group is greeted by flickering overhead lights and a chilling message scrawled on the wall. "Welcome to the experiment wing." The air in the experiment wing was thick, almost syrupy, and tinged with a metallic tang that burned the back of their throats. Fog snaked across the floor, coiling through rotted wheelchairs and around broken gurneys as the group surveyed the hallway. Overhead, the lights flickered, stuttering in sync with the pounding of their hearts. On the wall, in jagged black paint, a message screamed, "Welcome to the experiment wing." Thomas recorded everything, his voice low and controlled despite the trembling in his hands. June scanned medical charts strewn across the floor, records of radical treatments, failed cures, names and patient numbers buried under angry blacked-out lines. Simon tripped on a strewn file. As he stooped to retrieve it, a photograph slipped out, showing a patient with stitched lips and eyes wide with terror. The retired nurse gasped, whispering, "They never told the families about this." Further down the corridor, an old light box buzzed to life, displaying X-rays that shimmered with ghostly afterimages, hands with too many fingers, skulls with unnatural shapes. The tech specialist's recorder sputtered, then played back disjointed cries. "Hold them down. It's for the greater good. No, please." A crash startled everyone. One of the doors slammed shut in the windless gloom, separating Simon from the group. On the other side, his terrified shouts echoed, nearly drowned by the sudden rise of whispers. "Simon!" June called out, pounding on the locked door. From within, Simon's panicked voice faded in and out, as if he were slipping further away. Thomas calmed the group. "We have to stay together. He's still close." The nurse sank against the peeling wall, hands over her ears, as if the whispers found her mind unbearable. Above them, the intercom sputtered. "Subject unstable. Increase dosage. Proceed to observation room." Simon's flashlight flickered out, and he was left in pitch-black silence, except for one phrase on a patient's file glowing in the dark. One by one, they disappear. On the other side of the door, June found something even stranger. A sealed envelope, addressed in shaking handwriting. "For the next to enter, beware the mirrors." A quick glance revealed the corridor ahead, lined with ancient, cracked mirrors, each one reflecting not only their images, but faces watching behind them, faces they'd never seen before. The group regathers, hearts pounding, and prepares to enter the mirror-lined observation room, their nerves raw, knowing Simon might not be the only one to vanish here. The group, still shaken and desperate to find Simon, stood before the observation room. Its door, covered in rusty handprints, creaked open to reveal rows of towering mirrors, each cracked and dirty, reflecting the group with strange distortions. Dim bulbs flickered overhead, their light warping the images even further. June stepped inside first, her footsteps echoing through the darkness. Instantly, the temperature dropped. Their breaths clouded the glass surfaces. As Thomas followed, his microphone picked up faint whispers, but couldn't pinpoint their source. The nurse kept her eyes down, avoiding her reflection, a superstition from years of working night shifts. The tech specialist swept a flashlight across the mirrors. In every pane, they saw not just themselves, but unfamiliar faces lurking just behind, pale and watchful, eyes wide with fear or anger. One mirror shuddered as if struck from the other side. Suddenly, Simon's distorted voice echoed through the room. "Don't lose sight of each other." His reflection drifted from one mirror to another, never aligning with his physical presence. The group panicked, calling out for him, only for their own reflections to blur and twist in mocking reply. June stood frozen before a mirror, where her own face faded, replaced by a patient's, the stitched lips, haunted eyes. The nurse recalled legends of experiments. They believed the mirrors trapped memories or souls themselves. A shriek pierced the quiet. In the largest mirror, they saw flashes, a patient being restrained, doctors in shadow. Thomas narrated, hands trembling, as the group realized each mirror showed a piece of the hospital's hidden history. The tech specialist's device emitted bursts of static and distorted voices. Eyes open, eyes shut, never alone. A nearby mirror cracked, splitting the group's reflection. Shadows poured from the broken glass, swirling at their feet. The temperature plunged. June felt a cold hand grip her shoulder, a sensation echoed by everyone else. Suddenly, all the bulbs exploded, plunging the room into darkness. Only the glow from their flashlights remained, illuminating spectral hands reaching from the shattered mirrors, beckoning them deeper. As they flee the observation room, the last mirror flashes a single word, operating, pointing the way to the old surgical theater, rumored to be the site of the hospital's final secrets. Their lungs burned as they burst from the hall of mirrors, fear snapping at their heels. The last mirror's glowing word, operating, lingered in their minds. Down twisting corridors, past rusted stretchers and toppled IV stands, the group felt pulled inexorably toward the hospital's grim heart. They reached the doors of the old surgical theater, massive, steel, and smeared with faded handprints. Above, a flickering operating sign throbbed red as blood. Thomas steadied his hand, narrating the palpable dread. The air is heavier here. Even the silence hurts. Inside, the room was cast in an eerie bluish glow. Shadowy rows of abandoned seats circled the central operating table, looming like judgmental spectators. Medical lamps hung overhead, cobwebbed and dead, but the table beneath was startlingly clean, as if still in use. The nurse's breath hitched, memories of too bright lights and sharp smells flooding back. Old surgical masks dangled from hooks, staring with hollow eyes. The tech specialist swept the area for readings and picked up pulses, staccato heartbeats, panicked breaths, a remnant of trauma trapped in the walls. June found a stack of charts. She read trembling notes narrating failed procedures, patients not waking up, and a final entry. Procedure 37, never spoken, never finished. Simon's distorted voice crackled over their radios. I see you, but you can't see me. Suddenly, the old surgical lights flared to life, bathing the room in blinding white. For a breathless moment, the group was surrounded by blurred figures, doctors in stained coats, nurses with averted faces, patients strapped and struggling. A metallic clatter drew their eyes to a tray of gleaming scalpels. One slid off, clattering to the floor. The nurse whimpered as a cold touch ran up her spine. The group heard a familiar lullaby, but this time warped into a macabre chorus. Cut and sew, let the secrets never show. A spectral figure moved behind the operating table, tall, cloaked, its face always in shadow. The overhead speaker crackled with the doctor's words. Begin the final experiment. Prepare the subject. June tried to drag the group away, but the door slammed shut. Through the observation window above, the group noticed a single terrified face, Simon, pounding on the glass, screaming without sound as ghostly hands reached for him. As panic built, the temperature plummeted further, the lights went out, and the group stood in breathless dark. In the silence, a voice whispered from the operating table itself. If you want to save your friend, you must finish the procedure. Follow the red line. A thin, glowing red cord led from the table into a narrow, hidden passageway beneath the stage. With their hearts pounding, the group focused on the faint, glowing red cord as it snaked across the floor beneath the operating table and disappeared into a trapdoor at the base of the stage. Thomas hesitated, shining his flashlight into the darkness below. June led the way, her hand trailing the red glow as the others followed, each step an act of courage or desperation. The narrow passageway was suffocating, the ceiling low, and the air tinged with the smell of iodine and mold. Their footsteps thudded on damp concrete, echoing back as if others were following close behind. Faint hospital announcements, broken and jumbled, crackled through speakers embedded in the walls. Procedure incomplete. Subject waiting. As they descended further, their flashlights flickered. The tech specialist's gear picked up static, then soft voices, pleading cries, urgent instructions, the steady beep of a forgotten heart monitor. Shadows danced along the tunnel walls, elongating with every nervous breath. The cord finally ended at a heavy steel door streaked with red stains. A symbol, half a hospital insignia, half a warning, was stenciled crookedly above. June pressed her ear to the door and gasped. She heard a familiar voice, Simon's, begging for help amid electric shocks and muffled weeping. With a push, the door creaked open. The group entered a cramped laboratory lined with old surgical equipment, bloodied scissors, cracked syringes, empty vials stacked on dusty shelves. On a single cot under a harsh fluorescent light, Simon lay restrained, staring at the ceiling in horror, his mouth moving but making no sound. As Thomas rushed forward, a disembodied voice boomed through unseen speakers. To finish the procedure, truth must be confessed. Only then will the burden be lifted. The group huddled, uncertain. June began recounting the truth she'd hidden since her days as a nurse, her voice breaking under the weight of memory. As her confession echoed, the lights flickered, Simon's restraints loosened. Suddenly, alarms blared, and the whole laboratory trembled. Cabinets rattled and shadows leapt as the passage behind them began to collapse. With seconds to spare, the group pulled Simon free and raced back through the crumbling tunnel, debris chasing at their heels. Bursting up into the operating theater, gasping for breath, they realized every secret the building held wanted out. As dust settles, the intercom clicks on and repeats a chilling message: confess or join us below forever. In the stunned silence, the group sees a crumpled map marking the way to the hospital's chapel, where the next secret waits to be revealed. The group stumbled out of the collapsing passage, still coughing on dust. Simon, free but shaken, gripped the crumpled map with trembling hands. The red pathway marked a detour, leading not to safety, but to the old hospital chapel, its stained glass windows shattered, pews overturned, and a heavy silence pressing down on every soul brave enough to enter. Thomas steadied his voice, documenting the oppressive mood. This isn't just a place of worship, it's a place haunted by regret. The nurse scanned the altar, spotting a collection of faded prayer cards, each inscribed with desperate pleas for forgiveness. June led the way, drawn by the echo of distant bells. Shadows flickered as candle stubs guttered, flickering on ancient stone. Simon, as if summoned by ghosts, approached a confessional booth, opening its narrow door. Inside, a battered journal lay open, pages filled with confessions from patients and staff alike. I saw her vanish and said nothing. We kept the door locked at night. I prayed that the screams would stop. Suddenly, the chapel filled with low voices, dozens whispering all at once, a chorus of guilt and sorrow. The tech specialist's recorder picked up fragments, prayers mixed with frantic bargains. Heal me, let me go back, I'm not the one you want. The nurse knelt before the altar, compelled to confess her own secret. The night a young patient went missing, and she followed orders instead of her conscience. Tears ran down her cheeks, but as her voice filled the room, a cold wind swept through, extinguishing every flame. A stained glass window rattled, a shaft of moonlight illuminating the words carved deep into the chapel wall. You only leave when your soul is at peace. Suddenly, a ghostly figure appeared in the pulpit, its face obscured, hands outstretched. Confess, so you may ascend, it intoned, before dissolving into mist. With hearts heavy, but a strange sense of release, the group followed the map's next clue, an arrow pointing out through a side door, deeper into the hospital's untouched west wing. As the group leaves the chapel, the bells begin to toll once more, and the intercom blares, West Wing, where the truth waits in silence and shadow. The heavy chapel door closed behind them with a resonant boom. sealing their confessions in the darkness. The air in the adjoining corridor shifted, wetter and colder, a tangible barrier meant to test their resolve. The group moved as one, flashlights cutting slow arcs through dust-moted shadows that drifted like spirits in the gloom. As they advanced into the hospital's west wing, the silence was thicker here, filled with an expectation that pressed on their ears. The map's arrow pulled them down a corridor lined with patient rooms, doors slightly ajar, revealing only blackness within. Simon, his breath uneven, paused and studied a faded mural stretching across one wall. A sunlit picnic, children smiling, but each face was blurred out, erased. He ran his fingers over the painted grass, feeling the roughness where names had once been. "They tried to hide what happened here," he murmured. Suddenly, a faint creaking echoed from above, the slow percussion of footsteps on an upper floor. The group stilled, counting each beat. Thomas quietly narrated, his voice a trembling thread. "We are not alone in the West Wing. Whatever lingers here, lingers still." The nurse led them carefully, stopping at old patient doors. Now she dared to examine the records that had given her nightmares. Intensive observation, transfer declined, discharge to nowhere. At one cracked door, a voice called softly from within, a child's voice, impossibly gentle. "Will you listen to my story?" They peeked inside, a faint outline of a little girl holding a journal. She gazed at the group with hollow eyes, her story spilling out in an echo of sadness. Nights without sleep, whispers from the shadows, a promise broken by adults sworn to protect her. As she finished, the room rippled, her presence dissolving into dust and memory. The tech specialist's gear malfunctioned again, picking up flashes of chilling audio, a lullaby sung by deeper voices, bits of old medical codes, the word experiment repeated over and over. A sudden shudder ran through the corridor as a harsh wind snapped open every door at once. The darkness inside writhed with shapes and broken voices, but the group pressed on, clinging to the thin hope that by understanding every sorrow here, they might survive the night. At the far end, they found an old nurse's station, papers scattered everywhere, patient complaints, unanswered service calls, and a locked drawer. June finally pried it open, discovering a single yellowed letter that read, "To be free, you must face what the West Wing hides. The silence is not empty. It listens and it remembers." The group gathered their courage and followed the mapped arrow to the next unlit stairwell, knowing deeper secrets and darker dangers waited below. As they descend, a chorus of disembodied voices urges them onward. "Find the records. Remember us." The stairwell groans under their feet, leading them into the infamous Records Archive, a vault of hidden truths beneath the West Wing. The group descended the groaning stairwell, every step thumping with the weight of invisible memories above and below them. The air thickened, dust motes swirled under sickly fluorescent bulbs. At the bottom, an iron door waited, rusted hinges crying out as Thomas pried it open. They entered the infamous Records Archive, a vault lined wall to wall with battered filing cabinets and crumbling folders, their secrets hidden behind fragile locks. The tech specialist's device immediately picked up a flurry of white noise, fragments of frantic voices, urgent whispers pleading, "Find me, remember my name." June's flashlight swept across shelves, sagging with hundreds of files. Each folder bore patient numbers, eerie notations, disappeared, no discharge, final entry unknown. Simon shuddered as he pulled a folder labeled confidential, revealing a series of black and white photos, patients staring with wide, fearful eyes, staff clustered in nervous groups. The nurse moved from cabinet to cabinet, tracing her fingers over handwritten notes and cryptic medical codes. Some entries were crossed out violently, others overwritten by the word experiment. With every file, the group sensed a growing pressure, as if the walls themselves wanted to speak. Suddenly, overhead lights flickered and failed, plunging the archive into a trembling darkness. Voices swelled, overlapping in waves. You saw what happened. No one listened. We're still waiting. A loud crash echoed from the far corner. A cabinet toppled on its own, spilling paperwork across the dusty floor. As June knelt to sort through it, she uncovered an old logbook containing names and dates, admissions never documented elsewhere. She read, "Admitted, Lila Gray, room 7, status, awake but lost in dreams. Admitted, Simon Forrester, West Wing, status, returned but changed." Thomas narrated in a hushed tone, detailing every scrap of fear and guilt hanging in the stagnant air. The group sorted files, desperate to find a pattern, some key to the hospital's darkness. In a final drawer, June found a letter. Records hide the truth. Only when the truth is known can the doors finally open. The nurse wiped away tears, her trembling hands clutching someone's forgotten photo. The chorus of voices began to fade, replaced by a slow, mournful bell tolling above ground. Just as they read the letter's final line, the tech specialist's device began to pick up a rhythmic beeping, the sound of heart monitors somewhere deeper below. The map pointed forward, urging them into the intensive care unit, where the most tragic secrets linger. The rhythmic beeping echoed from the corridor ahead, guiding the group into the intensive care unit. Cold tiles stretched beneath flickering ceiling panels, each step loaded with dread. June's grip tightened on the logbook, her palms slick with sweat. Simon paused, swallowing hard. Childhood memories of hospitals made him shudder. Rows of empty beds lined the ward, each with broken rails and ruined sheets. Old monitors tilted on crooked stands, their screens glitching with waves of static and ghostly heartbeats. Thomas whispered into his recorder, "We're surrounded by memories, lost battles, and silent goodbyes." A soft whimper broke the hush. The nurse traced the sound to a half-parted curtain. Behind it, a doll lay forgotten, tangled in IV lines, eyes glued open in permanent surprise. June recalled stories of patients clinging to toys for comfort, even on the edge of consciousness. Simon dared a closer look, noting a thin trail of blood that vanished under another bed. Suddenly, all alarms triggered. Machines blinked and howled, an avalanche of beeps and warnings. The tech specialist's device registered them as whispers masked in code. "He's still fighting. We tried everything." She kissed him goodbye. A chill draft swept the ICU, fluttering the curtains like reaching fingers. Overhead, the PA system stuttered. "Code blue, room 23, all available staff." Room 23 loomed at the far end, its door wide open. The group approached, feet dragging, hearts pounding. Inside, the air shimmered. Fragments of time played out in flashes. Nurses rushing in, a patient's raspy breathing, doctors shouting orders. Amid ghostly echoes, June found an old medical chart. Patient Lila Gray, morning stable, night vanished. The nurse, trembling, recounted how hope faded here, the last words and last prayers always hanging in the air. Simon's flashlight flickered over the window, a message etched in frost. "Stay with me until the end." The group gathered in a circle, a strange sense of unity holding back the shadows. Thomas narrated, "These stories do not fade. They haunt the halls, the beds, the hearts." The beeping slowed, fading into silence. Only the faint pulse of their own fear remained. As they prepare to leave the ICU, a hidden speaker crackles to life, intoning, "Infection ward. Isolation required. The group follows the glowing red cord once again, deeper yet, where the horrors of the hospital's isolation wing have not been forgotten. The aftershocks of the last alarm lingered in the group's bones as they navigated a cramped hallway following the pulsing glow of the red cord. The stench of antiseptic intensified, mingling with mildew and a faint bitterness that caught in their throats. Overhead, emergency lights blinked erratically, flashing clinical white against blood-stained tiles. June steadied herself against peeling walls marked isolation ward. She glanced at the others, Thomas, brow furrowed in concentration, Simon rubbing his arms to fight off a sudden chill, the nurse, eyes wide, clutching her lanyard like a charm against the darkness. Their footsteps felt different here, muted, as if the building itself absorbed every sound. Doors lining the corridor were triple locked and covered with warning signs. Infection risk, no entry. Suddenly, a distant cough echoed, followed by a low, anguished wail. The group stopped, pulse racing, realizing they could not tell if the voice belonged to the living or the dead. The tech specialist checked his gear. Each monitor displayed distorted vitals, heart rates climbing, then flatlining, then cycling back as if time rewound within the walls. The nurse approached a tiny window, peering into a cell illuminated by sickly green light. Inside, a figure in a hospital gown sat hunched over, rocking slowly. She whispered, "These were the forgotten. They died apart, and now their sorrow fills the air." Thomas recorded every sigh and scrape, even the distant rumble of a ventilation shaft grinding to life. As they pressed on, the group discovered a shelf cluttered with care kits, masks, gloves, vitamin bottles, each cracked and yellowed with age. Simon read an ancient letter tacked to the wall. "Please remember me. I was here. I mattered." June reached the ward's focal point, a thick glass door barricading the isolation room. On the other side, handprints smeared across the surface, some small and faded, others fresh and streaked. For nearly a minute, the group fell silent, swallowed by the immense sadness radiating from the enclosure. Suddenly, alarms blared once more, emergency klaxons mixing with whispered prayers in a dozen languages. Shadows flickered behind the glass, faces pressed, mouthing words the group could never hear, but somehow understood. The nurse recounted a chilling story. During the worst years, patients wrote messages on mirrors so the ones who came after would read their fears. Sometimes, at night, we saw answers written from the inside by those we'd lost. Thomas and Simon took turns describing what they saw and felt, the slow descent into helplessness, the thick air, the desperate hope in every trace. Just as they were about to leave, June lingered at the last pane. For a breathless moment, she believed she saw the little girl from earlier, smiling and waving gently, finally at peace. As the group exits the isolation wing, the PA system triggers a single phrase on repeat. Radiology, see beyond the surface. With hearts heavy, they follow the red cord deeper into the maze, determined to uncover what the hospital buried in its x-rays and shadows. The corridor snaked away from the isolation wing, the group's footsteps now echoing beneath low ceilings paneled with peeling paint. Thomas led the way, his breath shallow, as June followed with the glowing red cord looping ahead. The sound of distant radiological equipment hummed, a ghostly mechanical drone punctuated by sharp, unpredictable clicks. They paused before the radiology suite, a faded sign overhead reading, "See beyond the surface." The air here was colder, tinged with sterile chemicals and the bitter smell of scorched wiring. The nurse hesitated, remembering past patients too weak to stand for their x-rays, their pain and fear etched into every waiting room chair. Inside, the group was struck by an eerie tableau. rows of ancient-looking monitors mounted on the walls, still flickering faintly, displaying old scans, lungs clouded with misty shadows, bones overlaid with dark spots, skulls streaked with ghostly white lines. June's flashlight revealed hundreds of film negatives pinned up like artwork, images illuminated by weak bulbs, human figures twisted by illness and something stranger. Simon lingered before a set of radiographs labeled with cryptic notes. "Look," he whispered, "some of these show things buried inside, shapes that look almost alive." The nurse nodded, telling a story of a patient whose X-ray revealed a face staring out from within his chest cavity. Suddenly, one monitor blinked, displaying rapid sequences of scans, interspersed with flashes of old patient IDs. Thomas narrated quietly. Radiology reveals not only sickness, but sorrow and secrets. The past is burned into every frame. The tech specialist tuned his recorder, catching voices woven between the static. They said it was just a shadow. Nobody believed me, but it moved. A film tray clattered to the floor, sending a cascade of negatives across the tiles. June bent to gather them, but her hand froze as she saw a scan of her own mother, a truth she'd never shared with anyone, now thrown into sharp relief by moonlight X-ray film. Tears welled in her eyes. The nurse gave her a silent embrace as the group gathered close. Then, the room seemed to pulse alive. Shadows on the walls started to shift, twisting into distorted silhouettes. Every scan blurred, then reformed into scenes of suffering, hope, and betrayal. Simon stepped back in fear as one shadow reached out, the outline of a child, waving serenely, just as June had seen in the isolation wing. A mechanical whir issued from an old film viewer, and the words, "The truth is inside you," glowed for an instant on every screen. Lights flickered violently, and the doors rattled as if struck by phantom waves. Thomas steadied his voice for the recording. This hospital never lets go of what it's seen. In radiology, the shadows are just the beginning. The alarms abruptly ceased. All remained silent except for a single soft beep. The red cord now pointed toward a smaller door, labeled Staff Room, Authorized Personnel Only. As the group steps out, June notices the logbook marked Staff Records. She grips it tightly as the group heads for the staff room, searching for the last human stories behind Black Hollow's walls. With the logbook in hand and the red cord snaking along the floor, the group entered the staff room, a cramped sanctuary marked Authorized Personnel Only. Dusty couches and overturned chairs revealed old coffee stains and torn nurses' uniforms. The scent of burnt toast, mold, and cold medicine hung thick in the air, reminding Thomas of nights spent in endless shifts. June placed the logbook on a round table scattered with staff ID badges. She flipped through pages filled with scrawled notes. Patient restless, Dr. Burns absent again, no one sleeps tonight. The nurse found a faded staff photograph, smiles uncertain, eyes puffy, some faces smeared with age, others blacked out. Simon probed a locked medicine cabinet. Inside, he found a trove of hastily written letters never mailed, apologies to families, secret warnings to coworkers, confessions about regretted choices or missing patients. He read part of one aloud. "If you're reading this, forgive us. So much went wrong, so much we weren't allowed to say." Suddenly, static burst from the old wall intercom, fragments of private staff conversations playing on a loop. "We lost her today. Shh, don't discuss this with the others. I wish I'd done more." The tech specialist, listening intently, tuned his device into overlapping frequencies, whispers woven between mundane chatters, messages about hope, frustration, secret heartbreak. June found a photo taped to the refrigerator, mailed back unopened. "Home isn't home anymore. I left a piece of myself behind." The group sat in the staff room, sharing memories from their own lives, furthest from this hospital, closest to its pain. The nurse told of emergency nights, laughter amid exhaustion, and the haunting silences after a loss. Thomas confessed a secret, his voice heavy. He once ignored a call for help, convincing himself it wasn't urgent. At that moment, the lights dimmed. Every badge started to glow with strange phosphorescent letters, spelling out, "Do not forget them." The coffee machine whirred to life, then sputtered out, ghostly echoes of staff routines repeating themselves. June stared at a message in the logbook. "To escape, you must forgive yourself, for them and for you." The group exchanged hopeful glances. Maybe facing these memories was part of the healing, not just theirs, but for the haunted halls themselves. As they prepared to leave, a final haunting staff announcement played. "Code closure in 20 minutes. All staff, patients, and visitors find your way." As the announcement ends, the red cord glows brighter, leading toward the psychiatric wing, a place of deep secrets where healing and horror were always intertwined. The group rallies their strength, ready to face what waits in the mind's darkest corners. The air thickened as the group followed the glowing red cord through a heavy set of glass doors marked Psychiatric Wing. The world changed inside. A hush draped the hall, broken only by the distant clang of pipes and an erratic ticking from an old patient clock. Faded wallpaper peeled in tattered strips, revealing clues. A childlike scrawl, "Still here," and a jagged outline of a face peering from behind a door. Thomas hesitated, reading the hand-drawn messages with a shiver. He quietly narrated, "Here, the hospital's pain was written on walls as well as in files. Each scream, each hope lingered." The nurse knelt by a pile of discarded journals, flipping through sketches, poems, desperate letters. She read, "The voices don't leave at night. Someone's watching through the vents. If you listen closely, you'll hear us thinking too loud." Simon's footsteps crunched on shattered pill bottles as he peered into a padded room. In the center sat a chair, straps dangling like limp arms, the faint impression of someone recently seated. He remembered news articles about controversial treatments, about promising to cure the mind, but often losing the person themselves. Suddenly, echoes of frenzied laughter and ragged sobs filled the corridor. The tech specialist's recorder went wild, capturing voices that tumbled over one another. "He's running again. I don't want another shot, please." Locked the doors and lost the key. June moved toward the group therapy room, where broken toys and paper chains wilted on round tables. She ran her hands over a mural. Patients, doctors, staff united in watercolor. But as she looked closer, some figures faded, some had no faces at all. The group sat in a circle, miming a session, nervously laughing, sharing their strangest memories. The nurse recalled singing to patients, Thomas a childhood nightmare, Simon his first panic attack. As they spoke, the room's mood shifted, less oppressive, almost lighter, as if sharing eased an invisible burden. But their peace was shattered when the overhead speaker crackled to life. "Seclusion room, emergency, subject in distress." Red emergency lights pulsed, and a door at the corridor's far end rattled violently. The nurse explained, that room was for the most troubled and the most forgotten. They advanced, torn between dread and duty, toward the shaking door. As they opened it, icy wind rushed out, carrying a chorus of voices. "We never left. We never will. Listen." Inside, a single bed, buckled in remnants of restraints, and on the wall, written in trembling red script, "If you know our names, we can rest." The nurse clutches a list of names from the journals, and the group realizes that, to move on, they must speak the names aloud, an act that will force them to confront the hospital's deepest ghosts. And, guided by the blood-red cord, the group passed through a massive steel door labeled Psychiatric Wing, Authorized Access Only. Immediately, the atmosphere changed, sterile and icy, with an undercurrent of sadness so deep it threatened to drag them down. Thomas clicked on his recorder, the static laced with fragments of humming and tearful confessions. The corridor was lined with heavy doors, each window a portal into padded silence. Strange drawings, stick figures cradling their heads, spirals, jagged sunbursts adorned peeling wallpaper. June ran her hand over one. Still here, it read, etched in desperate strokes. Flickering overhead lights created tunnels of shadow that seemed to stretch and twist as the group moved. Simon described feeling watched. The nurse offered comfort, sharing how even the bravest staff felt the mind's dangers in these halls. Fear here wears a dozen masks, she whispered. The tech specialist stopped at a records cart, sifting through patient logs. Many files ended abruptly, transferred, unresponsive, lost. Mixed in were scraps of poetry, one stanza lingering in memory. I wrapped myself in soundless sheets. In padded rooms, I dreamt of streets. Suddenly, a buzz from the old nurse's station. The intercom sputtered, reliving the past. Therapy session, Group A, Room 4, medication rounds. The group hesitated. Far ahead, laughter and sobbing overlapped, shadows flickering behind windows, voices chiming. Do you hear what we hear? Inside an old therapy room where crooked chairs circled battered tables, Thomas encouraged the group to share nightmares, memories, even the stories they'd never dared to tell. The nurse recalled soothing a terrified patient through the door. Simon, with a weak laugh, admitted his own childhood fears once trapped him in dreams for days. Their confessions woke the room. The temperature warmed, the humming lessened, a sense of release floated over their circle. But just as hope returned, the corridor outside filled with dreadful banging. A door at the end rattled. Then the intercom screamed. Emergency, seclusion room, subject in distress. Together, the group raced toward the door. Inside, they found a single narrow bed, restraints dangling. Written on the wall in shaking script, "Speak our names, don't forget us." The nurse held her list of lost patients. Thomas whispered, "Maybe, if we do, we'll find the answers, and peace for them. Maybe for us, too." With courage mounting, the group prepares to speak the names of the lost together, an act that will bind them to the hospital's truth and risk opening the final, darkest doorway. The group gathered in a tight circle within the seclusion room, its chilled air pressing against their skin. The nurse unfolded the creased, faded list of names, the ones whispered through the psychiatric wing, the ones written in journals and scratched onto walls. Outside, eerie winds rattled against frosted windows, making the silence heavier. June's voice trembled as she began. Lila Gray, Sarah Benton, Marcus Reed. Each name spoken was met by a subtle shift. The temperature warmed, restraints loosened, and the lingering shadows flickered as if listening. Thomas picked up the rhythm, reading names aloud, filling the space not just with syllables, but with stories, regrets, and second chances. Simon's voice was the last. Elijah Crow. And with it, a hush settled. Then a ripple of whispers swelled up, blending sorrow and gratitude. The tech specialist's device lit up, recording waves of overlapping, thankful voices. Thank you. Remember us. We are free. Suddenly, the faded portraits on the room's walls gained clarity, faces once blurred, now visible, some smiling, others crying, all finally given their place. The nurse, overpowered with emotion, shared memories of patients who'd simply wanted someone to speak for them. She let tears fall, cleansing the history buried beneath guilt. As the last name was spoken, the room's oppressive atmosphere lifted. The red cord dimmed and then gently unraveled, leading the group down a newly revealed secret passage lined with candles flickering toward the distant glow of dawn. But tranquility was brief. The overhead speaker blared a new, chilling instruction. To uncover the truth, walk the hall of final records. Only those who dare face everything survive. The group exhaled as one, knowing what awaited would not just test their courage, but their resolve to face the darkness, not only of Black Hollow, but within themselves. Hand in hand, the group steps into the Hall of Final Records, where every secret suppressed, every horror concealed, lies waiting to be exposed before the dawn. With dawn teasing the horizon and candlelight flickering along ancient bricks, the group entered the Hall of Final Records, a vast chamber lost beneath Black Hollow, doorless except for the secret passage they'd just revealed. The walls arched overhead like the vault of a forgotten cathedral, shelves upon shelves sagging beneath the weight of locked boxes, yellowing files, and books so old their spines had all but crumbled away. Each step triggered haunting echoes, soft thuds of old nurses' shoes, the click of a pen signing another patient's fate. Thomas narrated in a voice muffled by awe and dread. This is where the hospital hid its shame, and where we must face what was never meant to be found. June stepped forward, guided by the last stretches of red cord, and peered at a case marked critical incidents. She flipped it open, coughing as dust billowed. Photographs slid out, doctors in midnight emergency sessions, rooms filled with panicked faces, overseen by a stern administrator with soulless eyes. Lines of red ink marked every denied report, every overlooked tragedy. The nurse found a ledger, brittle as bone, each page inscribed by trembling hands. Ward 3, multiple unexplained deaths. Experiment wing, patients missing, no follow-up. Isolation, unidentified screams. Simon browsed another cabinet, finding recordings labeled "not for release." He pressed play. The speaker hissed with crackled voices. "Tell them nothing. We failed her. No more experiments." As the group listened, the air grew thick, memories and guilt swirling in invisible eddies. Faint sobbing rose from the darkness, followed by rattling chains and whispered regrets. The tech specialist adjusted his device, discovering frequencies filled with sobs and apologies. Never wanted to hurt them. The truth hurts more than silence. Suddenly, a gust rushed through the chamber. Loose papers whirled and stuck against the walls, forming a grotesque tapestry of suffering and secrets. One document, signed by the hospital director, confessed, "We surrender this place to its memories. May they never be forgotten." Lights flickered and died. The group pressed their flashlights together, illuminating a central table upon which sat a single blood-red key alongside the oldest journal of all, a diary titled "End of Darkness." Thomas opened the diary. The words inside revealed the story of Black Hollow's closing, the final hours, a last desperate attempt to save everyone trapped inside before the curse sealed the doors forever. As Simon read the last entry aloud, the arched walls seemed to breathe. "If dawn finds you in this hall, you will be changed by what you learn. Only truth admits the living and releases the lost." As the final key is claimed, a hidden door slides open at the chamber's far end, beckoning the group towards the dormitories, a place where survivors and ghosts who never wanted to leave await their own stories to be told. Through the freshly revealed doorway, the group entered the hospital's shadowy dormitories. Evening sunlight barely crept through shattered windows, painting jagged patterns on the cracked tile floors. Bunk beds lined the walls in uneven rows, sheets tangled and gray with dust, some neatly made, as if waiting for their owners to return. Thomas described the oppressive hush. This is where caregivers and survivors tried to rest, but no one truly slept, not when the past was restless. Simon's footsteps kicked up old memory tokens, a teddy bear missing its eye, a stack of yellowed letters, empty pill bottles rolling under a crooked bookshelf. June noticed framed photos on a bedside table, groups of staff, their smiles forced, worry etched in their eyes. She picked up a diary, ink faded but still legible. Heard cries again tonight. Some staff moved rooms, said ghosts followed but never spoke. The nurse ran her palm along a bed rail, sensing loneliness lingering in the metal. She told a story about nurses whispering prayers, passing rosaries, hoping tomorrow would bring peace. Suddenly, a door slammed at the end of the corridor. The group jumped, their nerves frayed. Simon listened closely, picking up a distant lullaby, soft and plaintive, echoing through the ductwork. "It's the same song from the isolation wing," he whispered. The tech specialist detected a rise in electromagnetic signals, suggesting unseen presences nearby. Flickers of cold, weightless shadows crossed their paths as they ventured deeper. They discovered a common room, its walls covered by murals. A different hand had drawn each one. Some showed joyous reunions, others depicted faceless crowds and anxious hearts. June read snippets scrawled next to drawings. "If you remember me, I don't disappear. Not every goodbye is forever." Thomas urged, "Let's share a story for those who never left." The group sat together, recounting patterns of hope and heartbreak, their words filling hollows left by decades of silence. As the stories unfolded, gentle lights appeared in empty beds, brief flashes as if souls paused to listen before moving on. The nurse set a candle at the foot of the quietest bunk, offering a prayer for those lost and those left behind. The PA system crackled to life, barely audible. "Main lobby, final message. Visitors, staff, survivors, your journey nears its end." Rising together, the group traced their way to the main lobby, following the winding passages and the flicker of dawn, ready to face whatever final truths waited in the beating heart of Black Hollow. Guided by flickering candlelight and the fading glow of the red cord, the group emerged into the hospital's main lobby. What was once bustling now felt frozen in time. Dust-covered chairs lined against the walls, a cracked reception desk littered with faded visitor name tags, and shattered glass doors allowing the first hints of morning to pierce the gloom. Thomas swept his flashlight across forgotten corners. A grandfather clock, stopped at midnight, loomed beside a pile of unread newspapers. The silence was broken by the soft scratch of a wind-blown leaflet, an old announcement, "Grand reopening, a new dawn for care." Simon scoffed, hearing irony in the title as their own dawn broke over a world haunted by loss. June wandered close to the reception, finding a guest book thick with stories. She opened it to random pages, reading entries from decades past. Words of gratitude, sorrowful apologies, prayers for loved ones, hopes for healing that sometimes came and sometimes didn't. The nurse traced her finger over one message. "Leaving today. Thank you for holding our pain so gently." Meanwhile, the tech specialist noticed a faint, pulsing glow beneath the desk. He knelt, revealing an old intercom panel still active. Static mixed with distant voices. "All visitors, prepare. Farewell, survivors. Black Hollow remembers." Suddenly, the lobby's windows rattled and a chill swept through. Shadows seemed to gather in the corners, drawn to the group's presence. Thomas reassured them. We have faced the ghosts, the secrets, and ourselves. The only thing left is to listen. Just then, the overhead speakers came alive, clearer than ever before. A voice, soft and solemn, spoke. You have walked our halls, carried our memories, dared our truth. The burden of this place eases only when the living remember and the lost are forgiven. The nurse set the last candle on the reception desk. Simon squeezed June's hand. The lobby, haunted for so long, finally felt lighter, as if centuries of suffering finally, gently gave way to peace. As they lingered, the sun climbed higher, illuminating the dust swirling in rays of gold. The doors opened slowly, patient and heavy. The group stepped outside, feeling the weight of Black Hollow ease from their shoulders, replaced by a bittersweet sense of closure. Turning back one last time, Thomas spotted a single unopened envelope beneath the clock, marked, "For those who face the end." With a steady breath, the group prepares to read what might be the last secret Black Hollow has to offer. The group re-entered the lobby, sunlight rising behind them as the grandfather clock maintained its eternal midnight. All eyes fell on the unopened envelope, thin and yellowed, resting silently beneath the shadow of the clock. June picked it up, her fingers trembling with the weight of all they had uncovered. Gathering around, Thomas carefully opened the envelope, extracting a single folded sheet. The paper crackled as he read aloud. To those who survived the darkness, what you held, remember. What you lost, forgive. What you fear, confront. As Thomas spoke, a subtle wind stirred the lobby, swirling dust into moving shapes. Brief glimpses of staff, patients, and visitors from every era of Black Hollow. Whispered voices echoed softly. We tried to heal. We tried to hide. We tried to hope. The nurse scanned the room, memories surging, witnessing joy and heartbreak, courage and regret. Simon found a ring lost under a waiting bench, a final token left behind. He pressed it into June's palm, pledging to carry the story forward. A second note within the envelope held a map, a delicate sketch of the hospital's earliest layout, marking a door at the edge never noticed before. Here lies the first and last secret. The group, now joined by the faint warmth of morning light, follows the old map's path. Down narrow corridors, past shuttered wings, each step lighter, every burden met with hope. They arrive at a sealed alcove, a plaque overhead, "For those who endured." There, in silence, they find a journal, its pages filled with closure, apologies, and dreams for a better world outside the haunted walls. The tech specialist records a final message: "Let our story gift peace to those who need it and courage to those who follow." As the group prepares to exit Black Hollow forever, the hospital seems to sigh, relieved that its story has finally been told, released from silence and shadow. Before stepping outside, June notices a handwritten ticket pinned to the wall. Sanctuary, Garden of Remembrance. Drawn by quiet hope, the group follows the path to Black Hollow's final sanctuary, where healing and memory entwine. The handwritten ticket, Sanctuary, Garden of Remembrance, led the weary group through the final passageway, its walls bathed in growing sunlight and lined with faded hospital posters. The oppressive air of Black Hollow eased as the door creaked open to reveal a garden half reclaimed by nature. Wildflowers blooming among the ruins of forgotten benches, and tangled ivy weaving through old statues. For the first time, birdsong joined the lingering echo of patient voices. June felt the tension leave her shoulders as she stepped onto soft earth. Simon noticed small plaques at the base of each tree, etched with names. patients who'd passed but were finally remembered. The nurse knelt beside a marble angel, whispering the names she'd carried since their journey began. Thomas recorded the scene, his voice gentler now. "We have crossed sorrow, found truth, and at last here is peace where memory can rest." The group wandered between stone paths and blooming roses. At the center, they found a fountain, its water sparkling in the morning sun. The tech specialist placed a single candle beside the pool, its flame flickering but unafraid. As they gathered, stories flowed, tales of healing and loss, courage and regret. The garden seemed to listen, sunlight warming every shadow. June laid the old map beside the fountain, a sign of journeys completed and new hope found. Simon planted the ring he'd found from earlier, a token to honor lives intertwined by fate and forgiveness. Suddenly, a gentle breeze stirred the petals, and the group heard faint laughter, the echo of children who once played among the trees. The nurse smiled, remembering nights when this garden was a place for staff to grieve, patients to dream, and for everyone to believe in another day. The hospital's bells chimed at last, not as a warning, but as an anthem. A plaque by the gate declared, "Black Hollow, may all who enter here find comfort, and all who leave do so healed." As the garden glows with morning light, Thomas sees another path winding through ancient willows. The group, feeling the power of remembrance, steps forward on this new path, ready to learn if true freedom awaits and what legacy they leave behind. Sunlight filtered through the ancient willows, scattering golden patches across the winding path. The group, emotionally drained yet filled with quiet hope, stepped forward, each carrying tokens of memory from their journey through Black Hollow. The echoes of suffering and sorrow now mingled with birdsong and the rustle of leaves, a living contrast between past and present. Thomas walked at the front, voice both strong and tender. Our story does not end with what happened inside, but with the choices we carry forward. June trailed a hand along weathered stones marking the way. To be free, remember always. Each stone bore a carving, a heart, a star, a single word, forgive. Simon shed his last fear in the sunlight, recalling faces and voices that had haunted his dreams. The nurse noticed that, as they moved, the path behind them closed gently, leaves sweeping away old footprints in pain. Halfway down the path, the group came to a wooden arch and a sign. Freedom, may all who walk here find release. The air pulsed with gentle music, faint notes of piano and children's laughter. The tech specialist's device, once alive with static, now broadcast only the peaceful hum of the garden. They paused at a bench overlooking the hillside, sharing aloud what freedom meant to each. For Thomas, it was forgiveness. For the ghosts, for himself. For June, it was carrying stories, never letting them fade. Simon voiced gratitude and the courage to tell hard truths. The nurse, eyes bright, spoke of hope for every patient who ever dreamed of tomorrow beyond Black Hollow's walls. As the group listened, the wind rose, lifting petals and scents, reminders of the lives they'd touched and the healing they'd begun. Shadows faded into brightness, and the burdens of the night fell away. Nearing the end, they found a plaque beneath a flowering tree. Freedom is not escaping the past, but accepting it. Thomas placed the final candle at its base, and the group stood together as sunlight flooded the path, a new beginning forged from memory and mercy. The birds sang louder, and the group continued onward, ready to leave Black Hollow behind, not as prisoners of its pain, but as witnesses to the power of truth, compassion, and freedom. As the garden recedes, a gentle trail leads to a memorial wall. The group, drawn by respect and longing, approaches to inscribe their names alongside those they freed, marking the place forever as a beacon for all who seek peace. The final trail led to a sunlit clearing where the memorial wall stretched, an expanse of smooth gray stone embedded with copper plaques. Each plaque bore a name or a message, some formal and others simply scratched by trembling hands. The group approached in mindful silence, feeling the power of every memory etched here. June traced her fingers over old inscriptions, never forgotten, love endures, and thank you. Simon paused at one marked only by a heart, sensing the story beneath its surface. Thomas touched a plaque naming Lila Gray, feeling the weight of her journey, her nightmares, and her peace. The nurse produced a set of fresh copper plates, and the group together engraved their names, each stroke a testament to survival, forgiveness, and compassion. The tech specialist documented the moment, recording a whispered promise. We remember, we heal, we pass the light forward. As the sun rose higher, shadows shrank back from the wall. Birds nested in blooming lilacs above, and the wind carried voices gentle and grateful. The group hung tokens alongside the plaques, a ring, the old logbook, candles, and the tiny shoe symbolizing lost innocence and found remembrance. Standing back, Thomas spoke for them all. This wall is more than stone. It's the witness to everything endured, every grief, every act of mercy. Our story does not end in fear, but in hope. June read the last inscription aloud. Peace for the restless, shelter for the lost, strength for those who remain. Tears, silent and healing, blurred the morning light. Simon smiled at the birds, trusting they carried blessings across Black Hollow's grounds. The PA system chimed gently, a soft final message echoing from the garden. May every soul remember and be remembered. May every wound find balm. May you walk forward unburdened. With hearts full but light, the group heads toward the exit gate. For one last moment, they pause, turning to see if Black Hollow itself feels the difference, now that its story has truly been written on stone and in memory. Standing before Black Hollow's wrought iron exit gate, the group felt both the world's weight and an odd buoyant lightness. The memorial wall rested behind them, every name and memory burned into stone and heart. The sun, at last fully risen, cast long shadows across the weedy brick path leading away from the place that had held them in its grip. Thomas looked back at the building, once menacing, now strangely tranquil. Windows that once watched like eyes seemed softer, the air less heavy. Birds darted through broken arches, and wild vines crawled over bare walls. Was it possible the hospital breathed a sigh of relief, its own burdens eased for the first time in decades? June leaned on the rusted gate, recalling every corner traversed, every secret unearthed. Simon paused at the threshold, torn between stepping into full freedom and the impulse to offer a final, grateful farewell. The nurse placed a hand on the sun-warmed metal, whispering blessings for future visitors. May they find healing, not horror. As the group gathered, the PA system delivered a last, gentle goodbye. Thank you for remembering and for letting us rest. The garden and memorial faded into the morning, their gifts imprinted forever. Before leaving, the tech specialist hung the recorder, still running, on the final gatepost, an invitation for new voices and new stories for those who might return seeking solace or understanding. A soft breeze nudged the gate open, unresisted. The group stepped through, eyes shining, hearts unburdened, carrying with them a tapestry of truth, pain, compassion, and hope. Thomas turned one last time, snapping a picture of Black Hollow under the gentle sunlight. This place, haunted and hollowed, now part of the world outside. As footsteps faded, the hospital seemed to shrink, slipping out of sight behind wild trees. But the story, stitched in stone and memory, would never be lost. And so, the gates of Black Hollow closed, quiet and kind for now. With the end of this journey through the haunted halls of Black Hollow, questions of fear, hope, and memory have been answered, etched deeply into the hearts of all who listened. Some may have found a piece of themselves in the shadows of these characters. Others may have shed a tear at the memorial wall. But everyone leaves this story stronger, carrying the power of truth and the beauty of courage in the face of the unknown. If you followed our characters, felt their tension, or lived a bit of their terror, you are now part of the legend. This story is more than just words. It's an invitation to see the world with greater empathy and to give healing a real chance within ourselves and those around us. If you enjoyed this style and the immersive storytelling, don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel so you never miss our next thrilling tale, full of psychological suspense and chilling atmosphere. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What moment resonated with you most? Do you believe there are more secrets left to uncover? And head to the notification bell to get the latest episodes and share this video with fellow fans of mysterious stories. Your feedback and ideas are the door to new stories. Every comment inspires fresh chapters in our haunted world. Thank you for your patience, for listening, and for the spirit you brought to the story's end.